let's get into it. Short selling, trendline cracks, right? Today's lesson, team. One of my favorites, the go-to for me when it comes to shorting stocks is trendline cracks. I can't, again, going back to not being a shorter beforehand, like Deck, even like last year, getting into shorting, it takes a second to figure out what you're good at and whether you're going long or you do go short. You have to figure out, your strategy, right? That's so crucial that we talk about when you become in here to become a new trader. Find out what works best for you. So when it came to shorting, to me, the number one overall most effective way that I kept finding over and over, that I kept seeing, that was like, wow, this is just so effective. This is beautiful. I see this. It's working. I need to start trying this. Was the fact that when a trend line would form, especially the longer the trend line or the steeper the trend line, when a stock would finally keep testing that and keep testing it, because I said that so much in chat, I say it all the time. It keeps testing this. It keeps testing this. It keeps testing this. It's going to what, team? It's going to crack. I'm like, okay, Josh, hello. That's the great opportunity for what? To learn how to start shorting and to start shorting. So again, today's lesson, my favorite way to short, my go-to short, trend line cracks. And what we want to look for getting into these trend line cracks, right? I love very long trend lines. This trend line was, over an hour long. Anything over an hour long, you're loving life, right? That's key number one. There's not that there has to be 20 minutes long, 5 minutes long, 30 minutes long. It doesn't matter. I'm going to show you all sorts of trend lines, and they crack in within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or, those steep ones could be 10, 20 minutes long. Those ones where they go from $10 up to, $20. Oh, it's spiking. It's halting. Well, that's going to crack. That's going to pull back. You put a line below where those little, lower shadows are, where the candles are, and it's going to pull below that. I promise you, it's going to crack back below through that line. It's well overextended, as we like to say, right? So there really doesn't matter their time length. So don't go, oh, okay, let me get right down 30 minutes. No, it doesn't matter. Now, we'll say back to that, the longer, the better. Now, of course, the steeper, the better. That's juicier too, right? And of course, the longer, the better. The longer this goes and tests and doesn't push, and then it comes back and then doesn't, it doesn't push and tests and then going to back and forth, you're going to eventually what? You're going to crack. So just wait for it. Be a stock sniper. Don't wait. Don't get in this. This is a lower shadow. That's not a full body candle. And that's my true main thing you always want to wait for. Do you see how this first candle starts to start forming outside of it right here? This is fully forming. That's yesterday when I said, here we go. You're good for a short now. Your first candle is forming. It's done. It is outside. There's no way this candle's getting back through. I'm not saying no way, but when that candle starts forming below this line like that, I'm going to show you a ton of slides. You're good. You're done. It's whammy time. Now find your support. That doesn't mean, we'll get into that. I'll do a full extended lesson for the trend line cracks. This is going to be part 2, right? This is just part 1 essentially. Part 2 will show you what then again to do, which I kind of did the first time around, but I'll do like this will be part 1, part 2 of trend line cracks and how to kind of trade it, the plan, that I guess will be kind of the term for that next one. This is just essentially showing you over and over again. My go-to is a trend line crack, and that every time what you want to look for is for that first full-bodied candle to start to form. Now, sometimes it starts to form inside of said, trend line, where it's on the trend line itself, but it's starting to do what? There's no wick. The body is now fully engulfed outside of what? The trend line. Not a wick. Not a wick. Now, I'm going to go through it. This is what I love. That's a 1 minute time frame. So 1 minute. So back to what I was talking earlier to the time frames. Back up to the top left next to the ticker. 1 day, 1M, 1 minute. 1 day, 2 minute. Now we're in a 2 minute time frame. Dex go to. No idea what happened when I pulled up my charting yesterday, but it was doing something goofy. But look, first full bodied candle outside. Look at it. It's not a wick. It is formed. It is out. 3 minute time frame. Let's get into a 3 minute time frame. 3 minute time frame here. Same trend line. I did not change the trend line. I set the trend line in, went to different, just 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute. That's what most people use most. I'll get to the 5 minute in just a minute. Again, look at this perfectly. And this is about where I'd have mine on most of mine. You could put them a little lower. I could have gone a tad lower on the trend line here. I put it up a little tighter, but still, look at this. When this starts done. Now, I know it's not forming on, it started forming on, it doesn't have to start forming, right? I didn't say start forming. I just said when it starts to form outside, right? These are wicks. You'll see this come down when you're watching this live. This is not doing this, team. The more you watch, you'll understand what the difference between watching a wick come down is versus a full candle flush when this is now through. And again, who cares if you're filled at 28? Okay, I'm good now. I know this is fully out. It's 28. This is fully out now. You're down to 26 within what, 9 minutes? You know, you're really within the minute. Within the minute, you're almost down to 26. So again, when you see these candles, let's get to a 5-minute time frame. When you see these now, and it'll be, again, it will sometimes, then you know your money. You know, that's like the asterisk A1A. When it is starting to and is formed outside of, like this, it's done. It's going to fall most likely 8-9 times out of 10. This is where you just have to wait for on these if you're in a 3-minute time frame, or sometimes it happens in a 1-minute time frame where you get the candle actually above the trend line. But this is what you want. You don't want the wick. You know how often these happen, team, or how short short-lived this is. This isn't like, I'm down here wondering and I'm chilling at 27.5, 27.7, 27.8. This is usually 9 times out of 10 what? Like this, where this will collapse when the full body is out of it. It's not just a wick. This is usually a shoot. You know, it's back up. This is down here for maybe 5 to 10 seconds of this full minute. Well, like I said, it's a 3-minute. We're on a 3-minute, but still, you know, this is starting to. It's not down here hovering forever. You know, we're moving back up most likely. That's why there's a wick there. You know, most of its candle. That's why it was short. You know, it opened and closed, and most of its action was above the trend line. Below. And back to the 15-minute. We already did the 5-minute, and now here's 15-minute. Again, starting to it obviously, as you can see, opened here, did spike, you know, above it. But now look, when we start collapsing, when the full candle's forming, we're down below 28. You know, again, work on these. You know, sometimes at first you won't fill these out as well as someone that, like, I've seen them so much now that I would have been a little bit higher than maybe you, and you're not in until 27.5. You're still good till this. You see the fall off here. You're still golden. Now let me get to a different trend line than I saw even on AMC. You could have had 2 different trend lines. You know, this was in a 5-minute time frame. I could see someone having this trend line right here, right? And if they're in a 5-minute time frame, say around lunch hours. But look, if you do get in on that first, and it's before the true fall off, this is where this was the trend line we had set at the last one. This was the last trend line, was this one. Now, if we want to start it from down here and work this one, we could have got in higher. Right, team? But secondly, the same thing. Look at the candle starting to form. It's fully outside of it here. We could be in at 28.50, could be in at 28, say 60, 70 to be closer, wherever you want to say, call it. But you'll notice most times the wicks will form on it. If you can draw trend lines, you know, well, and you figure them out, and you see most times, and you're like me and Bags were talking about, you're putting them on the wicks here. This is what you're going to see. You're gonna see the true crack and fail. I kind of flip-flop these. That's my bad. Here's the 3-minute time frame. Same trend line. Didn't move it. Same trend line, right? So that's fine. You know, this is what I'm talking about, though. Especially for, say, those lower shadows that don't end up what? Staying, those ones that were kind of iffy. Is the body going to be below it? Here's your main end-all, be-all clarifier. Did it close below the trend line? Or was it an upper shadow, or I should say a lower shadow, and it closed? Let's go back to an example of that main one that's kind of like, oh, well, could they have there? Where would have been a good area? There's only been one so far that's kind of iffy, and I should have put the trend line down a little further. But even here, I know the close is way down here. But again, where did these close at? We know after it happens, but still, when they close below the trend line, you're good to go. You know, that's the two main things I've kind of noticed over and over watching these two. You know, of course, I said if it starts opening below it. But then like this one, when it starts to close below it, and it's now closed fully below the trend line. This isn't a lower shadow test. This is a trend line crack. This is done. This is below the trend line. Now, again, why I put this one in and I love it is because look where we try to move back up to. I love doing these keep your trend lines in, right? I always say, if we crack the trend line, keep it in because it could be resistance if we push back up. Didn't even get back to the trend line. So again, maybe you were short here at say 28.50. Hold to your stop loss, which luckily at this point in time isn't massively steep, which would be to me and always is most times is your old trend line. That's your entry area, and it's also kind of your stop loss, right? So if it does push back through and it starts pushing above, you definitely have got to get out. You're about to get squeezed on. But a lot of the time, what if I show you in chat, and I love bringing these up, you crack the trend line, we try to push back up to said trend line, we get a fail. And not only get a fail, we get nasty fail. GME from a couple days ago. If you remember this trade, move. Beautiful trend line here, right? You can't see it. I mean, hopefully you can. Well, here, you know what? Yeah, we can. Yes, we can. AK-47. Come on here. Let's just zoom in so you can actually get to the heart of the matter here. Whammy. First full went outside, baby. Not only are we opening and we are closing outside of said trend line. Whammy, get yourself in here. Get yourself a nice short, right? Notice outside the full body, or the body, the whole thing outside the trend line, right? Great short to be had. You're in at 243, almost on the dot, somewhere in that area maybe. This tugs back, 232, $10, 10, 11 points, nothing major. Beautiful short. Zoomed in a little bit on the 3-minute time frame so you can see it a little bit clearer. Fine if you didn't, get in where it actually closed. Like that's your, AK said it once it closes. It's closing below the trend line here. Oh, it's closing. Get in, right? Whammy. Did not close the below. Did not close below. Nowhere on here did we close below. Close, very close. Actually, this open. That's an opener. That's an opener. So that's an opener, not a closer. That's the close right there, as you can tell, because that's where it opened and closed and back down. So, anywho, that's a close. This is the closest one we got was right there. So now when we close actually below it, that's your identifier. That's your, right there. Identifier. Identify it. Sorry for repeating that so many times, but that's the indicator right there for you. GME, again, closing, then opening. This double whammy today, because time, that's, again, for me, team, maybe not yourself, but a 5-minute time frame, that's why I'm just like, it doesn't give me enough, to me, in my head, enough info. So, and I hate having to wait for this. But again, if you look at it and then start, if I could train my brain to think that way, right here, you're closing, then you're opening. Oh, hello, Josh. Okay, but that's it. That's what you want. This is what you're wanting to see. Boom. Now you're good to go right here. The double whammy right beside each other. Now again, if you can't read that, go back to that 3-minute time frame just to see it a little easier. But again, you can see you got to close and then you got to open. You're good. You're good. Let's get into some other trades. Over the past few months, I just kind of looked up. Here's one from the day before Christmas. Boy, when we're spoiled. Spoiled little children on Christmas Eve. Stocks going from 650 to 1080. Just chilling. This is mini runners we had. It was that was our last, I'd say, super busy fire penny stock month was December. Again, though, first full, and kind of like we saw in the last one, close, open, not the close, but it's opening on it straight up. That's you're not essentially below it yet, right? Right here, finally closing below, opening, and that's fine if you don't want to get, you don't get filled till 9.75. Though, right here, your money. Whammy. $1, a point. You don't want to take $1 short. Now, of course, if you only hold to the VWAP, that's still fine. 50 cents though, close to it, 60, depending on where you got in here. Even if you got in at 75. So great to see when the candle is closing and then opening below. I'm rarely in like right here. I'm not in going, I'm in right at the trend line. I'm waiting a second. I want to make sure, I promise you, I don't want that to fail on me either, or I should say to squeeze on me and it ends up coming flying back up, I want to wait for this. Okay, now it's closed. I'm waiting until then. Oh, wow. Another one. Here's another one from Christmas Eve when we were spoiled little children. Not that it's a crazy mover, but I know it was up higher from, I forgot where it opened at. I should not open at, but where it was closed at the day before. But it was, I think, in the 2s. But another decent mover on the day. GEVO. Maybe not because it was only up 30%. Regardless, though. You see the movers. Whether they're 100% movers, 20% movers, doesn't matter. Close, open. I didn't want to keep putting arrows in to keep, kind of be obnoxious. But again, right here, you see the close. You see the open. If we needed to zoom in, just so everyone can zoom in a little bit more for everyone. For the seeing impaired. It's funny we say hearing impaired, but they never say seeing impaired. What's up with that? Anyway, I just kind of thought of that because like the seeing impaired though. But there you go. If you can't see so well, zoom in for us. But there we go. Whammy. We're in at 410. Right down to the VWAP. That's your, great. And if you hold through your VWAP crack, awesome, right? But that's it. Closed, opened, identified, you're in. Go with Nintendo 64 this time. How about that? Triple D. Let's look at Triple D. Again, not up much on the day. Just another trend line that we're looking at. I know it's up 20, but I guess it was when I took the picture. It's still up 26. It said it was only up at 12% on the day. Regardless, though, does not matter. It's still a nice move from 21.50, 22 up to 28.50, whatever, however much it's up. Put your trend line in. Full close, full open. Say if you're in at 27.25 at the worst, because that's, hey, you're identified now, right? Your identifier set. You're in. Don't let the lower shadow scare you. You have stop losses for a reason. It's kind of why I put this one in, because you're like, oh, lower shadow reversal, right? Not so fast, my friend. Not all the time. Yes. 8, what if I did a study, I'm sure 8.3 times out of 10, whatever it would be, 8-ish times out of 10. Yes, you see somewhat of a upper shadow and, tweezer top especially, whatever. Pull back, again, pull back. Oh, a little bit lower shadow. A reversal back up, right? A bounce, lower shadow, bounce back up, so, same here. So most times, yes, but not always, right? And especially I notice these on trendline cracks where just a bunch of selling comes in, shorters like myself take over, and they're just kind of done with it for the second. And then finally it finds some support finally back at the VWAP, but very short-lived till it falls off more. And then again, finally, what do we get? And I could have put a line in here and J-Trades would have been all over it. It's the downtrend break. And there was that little hesitation I always talk about that we're going to break, or come on, we're above the downtrend, right? Right where our full candles are outside of the downtrend. And then look what finally happens. So just stick to your guns. Again, I'm rarely in right here. Sometimes I just know it and I just have a feeling and boom, I'm in it at 27.50, ish, somewhere in that area. But that's fine. Sometimes I'm in at 27.25. I know I get a good still portion and meat of the run. I'm, again, not worried about that entry team. Don't let that freak you out and go, oh, I didn't get in at the best. Another one where it's not much of a mover, right? Not a big mover. Where are we going to get in at, right? We finally have the close in the open, kind of, a little bit further down from where we could have gotten in at 108, to be nice, but 105 is nothing to sniff at. I know it's right on the VWAP, but that's a great entry for me to what? Hey, if it bounces, that's fine. I know it can go back up to the trend line, but that's my stop loss. If it doesn't, squeezes back through 108, 110, I'm out. That's fine. I was wrong, okay? And you are wrong if in that case. But we were right. If we were getting right here at 105 VWAP crack, we cracked back at, literally back to what, 98 cents, eventually down to 91 over time. I think we take that. Of course, holding on for that move most likely wouldn't happen, but I'd take 105 back to about 90, almost 95. Smaller. Again, look how small. Not a big mover. Don't let those entries, I didn't get in at 108 or 107. That's okay. It's okay. I want to can't stress that enough when it comes to any of these plays. Don't let that entry area, make you mad, I guess, essentially. Another great play where you put the trend line in, kind of put it in the area that makes sense, fits best for you. And look, when you crack it, where you try to push at least anyway, back to it again. Big Matumbo finger. No. You're not coming to my house today. Dukembe's having family dinner for Memorial Day. So you get my point. They said, no, not happening. Love that commercial. Love Dikembe. I swear, it looks like he still could play. Anyway, but you get my point. You keep those trend lines in, team. I promise you, so effective. So effective. Again, on the entry, right? Maybe we're in here, say, at the 660 mark, because that's where the close and the open are. That's fine. And it's starting to push. Don't get out. It's only going to go. They only push like 10, 12 cents, 15, maybe at most. Back to the trend line, and you hold tight. You wait for Dikembe. He's moving. Okay, you're like the point guard. He got past you. You're the deck. You're the 6'2", 210, studded up, 3% body fat. Point guard. Well, deck. Sometimes they get past you, but luckily Deck's got Dikembe back there, right? So he's not worried because, okay, cool, you got past me, but guess what? When you get to the basket, you got Dikembe to mess with, and so he goes, rolls up to the basket, and Dikembe swats it away and gives him the finger and says, no, not the finger, but I hate to say that, but you know what I mean? He does the no, he shakes his finger like no, like you would with your finger, no, not really, literally giving him a finger. And then whammy, you wait for Dikembe to come in and swat it, and it just, collapses. So you stick to those guns there. Even if you're in here at, say, 660, or 657-ish, whatever this would be, 655, 670, or I should say 660. That's fine. Don't worry about this pushing back up to 670 is my point, 675. You got Dikembe back here. Now, Dikembe, somehow, this is Michael Jordan, and he slams on Dikembe and keeps rocking and rolling, Gotcha. That's where you just need to get out and call it a day. Say to Kimbe, sorry you weren't there. It just wasn't it. Wasn't it. This wasn't the play, right? I'll get him on the next play, right? So get out. But again, close, open works out perfectly, even if you stick to your stop loss, which should be the trend line. Another kind of slow and steady dwindler, right? I'm trying to show you some that, some aren't just like right off the bat, just collapse, right? Sometimes you have to wait a little bit. But if you put your trend line in here, once again, closed, it opened, you're in at 950. This slowly makes its way over time to, of course, 920, more so over the first 10 minutes or so. And then over time, probably about 15 to 30 minutes, or 30-ish, close to 25, 30, I should say, boom, down to $9, so 50 cents, over time. A lot of these, again, they're great shorts to be had. Some of them you just have to wait a little bit right there. Look at this here, and again, and that's why I love putting this one last. And I could try to find more, and I will when I maybe get into my next lesson when I do part 2. Although part 2 is I like to kind of go back to part 1 and do the same stock, but then more so kind of dive in a little bit deeper and where would you stick to everything? Although I kind of did that this time, I'll do it again and break them down a little bit more. But these elongated trend lines. Right, I love the steep ones. Like here's an example of kind of like a steep one, right? We see, any kind of stock like ZOM spike. I think this was a bigger float, no matter the float or how much it spikes, which we love. The more it spikes, we know the more it's going to probably crack back. But look at this trend line. You start to set it in right here, and you go just right on up. Close, open. We're below the trend line, right? Because the trend line would have been right through here. Spikes back up to the old said trend line, right where it would have been. It fails there and collapses back, right? So that this isn't going to hold. It's just not going to. Why you go, okay. You eventually do have to kind of, whenever you work your way out of it, still would have been profitable. Going, oh, this is holding up. This isn't collapsing fully. This is holding. So then you just wait. And even if you would have got in here, which is funny because it didn't move much at all for the day, you're still good because it only went up like 140. But regardless, me, as myself, this trend line is the main thing I'm talking about. Besides those super steep ones, I love those. But these super long ones that last an hour, 2, 3 hours long, you get them that long, wow. Anything up to that, usually 10 to about an hour and a half, usually seems to be that mold of going, okay, it's crack city limits time. We're going to pop, right? It's one or the other. But that's usually that time frame, 1 to 2 hours. We get past 2 hours and everyone's going, how is this still on this trend line, right? So usually it's about an hour and a half long. Those are the juicy ones that I'm just over here looking like I've just got my Memorial Day feast set with my ribs. Oh, my sticky ribs. Oh, juicy cheeseburgers, double stuffed cheeseburgers, by the way. Some juicy brats. Oh, some steaks. Still deciding on what steaks I want. You get my point, though. You're just like eyeing it out, and you're just going, oh, whoo, I can't wait. And I know this one's super close, which I love. Closed, opened, you're in. Look at it, and then just woof. You're in at 130. You actually can say, you know what? I can actually get in really close here. This is actually closing and open, close to the line. I know it's close, but hey, that's what he says. Okay, it's what he says, right? It's what AK says. And then right on, like butter on that hot corn on that cob off the grill, just melts away. So hopefully you see that team. Those are your main identifiers. Main one, that you want to look at, that we've seen in every single one of these, like I just showed you there. I can show you here. An 8, going back to 8 point whatever I was saying, 8 however many times out of 10 when you see the upper shadow, lower shadow. Same thing with these trend line cracks. You see an open and a close below. You see an open and a close below. You see an open and a close below. Open and a close below. Every one of these, that is your main identifier for a great short op. You see first, of course, is the trend line, right? And the longer the better. We love those. Of course, the steeper the better. But the main thing is just waiting for it to finally fully crack, and not a lower shadow, but that full candle's outside of it now, and now we're closing outside of it. Not forming a lower shadow and then popping back up. We're actually closing, and the full body is outside of it now. The next one is now opening up outside of it. You are money. You are good to go for a short op. Get your butt in for a short. Mark it in. Get your butt in. So hopefully that helps you on trend line cracks and the shorting opportunity that they present themselves, and where to get in and where to get out, with those that main identifier there, with that body, with that full body candle out of it, closing out of it, and then opening outside of it, and it just cracks away. All right. MDJH. Let's see, we have anything been going on here, but that is the lesson real quick. Let me go ahead and stop that actually before I forget.